In about a month, Makoto Shinkai's new film, Suzume, will be dropping in US theaters. Before its release, I wanted to revisit some of Shinkai's previous work and see how he has evolved as a filmmaker. For this, I chose 4 of his films. His first feature film, the first film of his that I'd seen, his most popular film, and his most recent film. To start us off, let's take a look at where his journey began. In an alternate time where Japan is divided in two, childhood friends Hiroki, Takuya, and Sayuri dream of visiting the mysterious Union Tower. One day when Sayuri suddenly disappears, Hiroki and Takuya abandon that dream and go their separate ways. Although, as a catastrophic war creeps closer to fruition, the two reunite and work together to save not only Sayuri, but also the world. That synopsis is a little all over the place, but it's the best I could come up with without giving away too much. Unlike the 3 other films, I had yet to have seen this one. I knew nothing about it and didn't really know what to expect. I know Shinkai's films usually revolve around romance, but he tends to add a unique element with each story to make it more intriguing. Although upon my first look before watching this film, I honestly thought this was going to be a regular slice of life story. Boy was I wrong. The place promised in our early days takes place in an alternate timeline where Japan is divided in two. Everything south of the Tsugaru Strait is a Japan aligned with the Western world, and the island of Hokkaido, or as they sometimes call it in the film, Ezo, is occupied by the Union. The film was not very clear when identifying which country was the Union. At first I thought it was a fictional nation made up for the movie, but when looking into it, I learned that the Union was meant to be a referral to the Soviet Union. Which I guess makes sense, I'm just not sure why they kept it as vague as it was. I suppose one could piece it together with the subtle clues we are given, but they are easy to miss. You could also argue that knowing who the Union isn't that important, but with how prominent the subplot is in the film, I feel like knowing could be a little useful. It's still an interesting scenario that I have yet to see in films, and if there are other films out there that explore this idea, I would like to know so I can watch them. This is the first time I felt like the Japanese voice acting was a little weak in a Japanese movie. I say that with a grain of salt because I know how the voice acting industry is in Japan. It's very competitive and rigorous, so I'm not trying to undermine the skills of the voice talent, although something about it felt off. I think it was mainly due to the overly dramatic dialogue that made it less believable to me. The characters speak cryptically, and since these are teenagers, it feels less natural. Overall, the voice talent did a decent enough job with what they were given, but the dialogue sometimes held them back, I feel. The aspect I had the most problems with is the editing. At the end of most scenes, there is a fade to black, which I don't mind every once in a while, but some of the scenes are very short, and when it happens so frequently, it becomes very distracting. It also makes the film feel a little disjointed. Fortunately, this is only really a problem in the first half, as Shinkai eases up on it in the latter half of the film. Just like Shinkai's other works, this film is very pretty. It's got that sort of polish that can be seen across all of his films. It knows it too because there are a lot of establishing shots that emphasize the beauty of the environments. It's neat to see that Shinkai and Comics Wave had this down since the beginning and that they used it to their advantage. Even if this isn't his best looking film, it's still pleasing to look at.
ねえ、あの飛行機でどこまで行くの？
あの塔まで行くんだ。
塔ってユニオンの塔？
うん。塔まで多分40分くらいで飛べると思うんだ。国境をどう越えるかが問題なんだけどね。でもそれも考えがあるんだ。
The relationship between the 3 main characters is a little odd to me. Initially, we're introduced to Hiroki and Takuya, best friends who work at a military factory together. Speaking of which, who's letting 9th graders work at a military factory? The two eventually start inviting their friend Sayuri over to show her around their workplace. She becomes close with the boys, and it's implied that both Hiroki and Takuya start developing feelings for him. I'm baffled that there was no tension between the two because of that. They either didn't know how the other one felt, or they were just really chill about it. To be fair, by the time they become close with Sayuri, she disappears, so it probably didn't matter at that point. The mystery surrounding the Union Tower left me with more questions than it did wonder. We are given little information about its origin, but enough to make us ask why. And those questions are never really answered, which I thought was a shame. It could have given us more context to why our main characters wanted to go to it. The only reasons we were given were they felt drawn to it and that there's this promised place beyond the tower. I could have overlooked some points in all honesty, so perhaps a rewatch would clear some things up, but as of now, that's all I got from the film. Anywho, the place promised in our early days does not hold back when presenting a unique scenario for a romance. It is a very Makoto Shinkai film, but I think it's obvious that he was still trying to figure out how to execute his style properly. It is his first feature film after all. By no means is this a bad movie, I just don't think this is the film to show others when trying to introduce them to Makoto Shinkai. So if you are someone who wants to start watching Shinkai films, I would hold off on this one, as I can see first time watchers being a little confused due to some elements being a little convoluted. If you're already a Shinkai fan, it is an entertaining enough watch, and I think most of his fans will end up liking it. But yeah, that's one film down, 3 to go. Next I'll be looking at Children Who Chase Lost Voices. But not now. Okay, bye.